Space, Blade Runner, Ghost in the Machine, Ex Machina. What do all these shows have in common? Well, they have one main thing in common, and that is automated robots are now have the tools to grow imitation simplified human organisms out of stem cells. Thankfully, we haven't been transported into the sci-fi matrix where the machines have risen up and started human farms. But rather, we are now in a world where pharmaceuticals and other biomedical research companies, schools, just became or just made it to become more easier and faster as they lead the way to the rise of the machines. So tonight on Dark Matter Radio, it is with your host, Ronnie McLean, and the human like organoids. Interesting. There's been an awakening. Have you felt it? You are listening to Dark Matter Radio with your host, Ronnie. This is your host, Ronnie McLean, and I am glad to be with you tonight, and we are having a conversation dealing with robots and how they can grow human organisms or organs. Remember the days where they had Lucy or whatever that cow's name was, or was it a sheep? It might have been a pig as well, where they're able to grow hearts and other organs from animals, and then they began to start growing stem cell organs about maybe 20 years ago. But now they have a situation as to where robots can now grow human organs. Interesting. Is there anything that robots can't do? They perform our jobs. They get periods now. And now they can grow human organs. I mean, when you look at shows like RoboCop, and Lost in Space, you kind of, and even iRobot, you kind of get like those kind of machines where they're actually machines and not actually Android type stuff, right? But then when you start to get to Blade Runner and shows like Lost in the Machine, Ghost in the Machine, you start to get things like it becomes kind of weird because it starts to become more human-like, where you can't tell the difference between one person or another. And even shows like Ex Machina. That was a crazy show if you didn't see that one. That one was really an artificial intelligence type being where they really couldn't tell her the difference from anyone else. And now we have a situation as to where, like in the Matrix, the machines are going to be responsible for growing our organs. And, as the scientists at the University of Washington, the School of Medicine had developed an automated system that uses robots to produce human mini organs from stem cells, according to Science Daily. The ability to mass produce organoids is what they're calling them, promises to expand the use of mini organs in basic research and drug discovery. Well, in a quote, "This is a new secret weapon in our fight against disease," the University of Benjamin Freedom tells Science Daily. And this is really a serious thing because you know, as we begin to start allowing ourselves become more like, I guess, non-human, it has people giving us a lot of concerns. I mean, a lot of concerns people have in terms of all the different types of things that they're doing now in terms of us becoming non-human. I mean, a lot of different things. I mean, when people start to have, you know, um, artificial arms and artificial legs and artificial hip implants and stuff like that, goes a long way with the extension of life and also the extension of quality of life. And it takes a lot of pain away from people who have arthritis and even the ability to be able to grow the nervous system and having people to be able to walk again, or having limbs, robot limbs that are able to you're able to put on and able to help you walk or walk and run and do things as a normal person would be if you were completely a paraplegic. So, it's really interesting how we are progressing so quickly into all these many different things, and how these robots are actually really taking the places of a lot of our human places and our human existence here on Earth. I mean, back 20 years ago, they came out with a lot of different lists as to what areas of work would be good and what areas of work wouldn't be good based on technology. And that technology was where robots would be taking over in terms of your job. And a lot of it happened in the car industry, and a lot of the automotive and anything that had automation went directly to robots. So, when you get into all of this stuff with, biomechanics, robotics, and you start looking at the things that they're doing and the things that they're creating, some people get very scared. The days of RoboCop are actually, kind of here, where they're able to infuse now living organisms, or even create living organisms out of nothing and have it respond like an actual cell. And they now are able to grow synthetic type blood vessels, and also they're able to grow synthetic corneas and bionic eyes. They have an implant where they can put in between your lens and your cornea, and it acts as a bionic eye, and it gives you almost 10/10 type vision on just about anybody who gets it. So when you look at this stuff and you say, the robots can now grow human organs, what does that really mean for humanity? But before scientists would grow cells for biomedical research by culturing them into flat sheets. So, that's a scientific way of them actually, building on top of each other. That's one of the reasons why the cornea took so long for it to really take hold, because it was too thin for it to actually be used in reality. But these were too simplistic to truly mimic the ways of true cells and how they behave. So more recently, researchers have had some success growing these cells into more complex and three-dimensional structures called mini organs. This new development, however, allows them to produce the organoids, is what they're now being called, at a rapid pace. It's the first time researchers have been able to mass produce these mini organs from stem cells, which is extremely, extremely important to understand that these stem cells, they can, there's certain stem cells that are used where it can be manipulated into just about anything. And as you know, it's the stem cells that are what helps the mitosis when the baby is being functioned to begin to start growing all of its different body parts as a programming sequence takes place. And that's very, very interesting when you think about that everything works like a program. So ordinarily, just setting up an experiment of this magnitude, so when they are doing it by hand, it would take the researchers all day. Sometimes, anywhere between a whole day of setting up, or well into the next day. Well, a robot can do this in 20 minutes. And Friedman tells the Daily Science, so Friedman is one of the scientists at the university. On top of that, the robot doesn't get tired of making mistakes. So this isn't a mistake-free process, as we're finding out. It's a, they make a mistake and they can correct themselves, make a mistake and they can correct themselves. And they can do all this and get it all set up within 20 minutes. On top of that, the robot doesn't get tired of making mistakes. And there's no question, for the repetitive, tenuous tasks like this, robots can do much better than humans. So when we get to a point as to where we're saying the robots can do it a lot better than humans, it's really, you tend to say that, but again, it all goes into what kind of programming it is, and that's why the artificial intelligence aspect of things are so important. So when you get to shows like Ex Machina or things like In the Matrix, the artificial intelligence that's now being produced inside of these programs, with these robots, these androids, these human-type androids, are very, very significant. I mean, when you get down to looking at, putting these programs like quantum mechanics type processing with inside of the robots, if you understand quantum mechanics as a basis, you can understand that the quantum mechanics works outside our time continuum of this universe and actually uses space in another universe to complete its computations. And that's what makes the quantum mechanics type AI so very powerful. And once they begin the process of putting this in there, the robots won't only be able to grow humanoid mini organs, they'll be able to grow organs and figure out how to do it at a faster pace than any other human can. Don't forget, not too long ago, we had a situation as to where I believe it was Google who had two programs talking with each other, and they were under control. And then the programs began to start creating a secret language where the programmers themselves had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. In other words, they were progressing and they were mutating into an intelligence that if they didn't shut them down, may not have been able to control, because we wouldn't have been able to understand their language. So these automated robots now have the tools to grow imitation, simplified human organs out of stem cells, and giving these robots some, blueprint stem cells, or stem cells that can become any type of stem cells, as we were talking before. And 21 days later, they'll have finished a complicated experiment testing out of the effects of a drug or genetic manipulation on some human-like lab-grown kidneys, according to the researchers published yesterday, and yesterday is May 17th, in Cell and Stem. The process is much faster and more reliable than when humans grow the same many organs. So it's kind of crazy, right? And now the scientists are saying, thanks to the shortened experiment time, scientists at the University of Washington School of Medicine have already started to use these robots for high throughout screening, throughput screening, a type of experimentation, and test a large amount of samples at once, because they could test so many kidney organoids at one time. Researchers have already learned how different compounds affect kidney disease, a common condition which is serious, with serious symptoms. It is kind of crazy, right? It is kind of crazy when we are coming down to these kinds of kind of technology. So, it's really important for us to be able to keep up with what's going on around us and how technology is changing and how it's going to be changing our lives. It's extremely important for us to be able to talk about this freely on a radio program that is going to be not censored. And again, I thank all you people for your support that you're beginning in. We're getting ready to set up a Patreon page, which is going live. And you're going to be able to get on there and become a Dark Matter Radio supporter for us to be able to create a better integrated radio system that is going to be free from any kind of disruptions at all. 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And they'll go into urban programming and all kinds of programming that that's going to be able to reach out to a lot of different diasporas. But with this, now robots can now grow human organs. Got to be careful about what we're doing, people. A lot of people say this is the signs of the end time. Other people say this is just sign of progress. But when you begin to start talking about artificial meat that they're growing in labs for us to eat, when you start talking about all of the GMO foods that are now inside of our actual food system and thoroughly integrated in just about everything that we eat.
Search people's backgrounds.
And when we know that a lot of these places are trying to, or a lot of political systems, Congress, etc.
Yeah.
They are looking at laws and showing us what we cannot eat or what we are eating, and we won't know what we're eating. That's what I'm trying to say, actually. So it's very important for us to stay up on this political aspect of things as well, and making sure that our system is completely open so that we are able to have an understanding of what we're engaging ourselves into, even in our food system and even in our medical system. So, when it comes down to vaccines, and knowing that just about every one of the vaccines that you take has some sort of a contaminant in them, even if it's microcontaminants with mercury or any other type of systematic thing that can cause Alzheimer's, etc. It's very important for us to keep a hold on what's going on. Also, when you go down to that CDC situation where one of those doctors had put out there his research about how the vaccines also went into the causing certain types of Alzheimer's and other types of diseases and stuff like that. And remember, that guy disappeared for 3 days. He ended up dead. And then we have a lot of people who are naturopaths that are ending up dead and disappearing, including doctors that are on a naturopathic type medical system. They're also ending up dead. So, when we talk about all this new technology and talk about all this new stuff, we tend to have to start thinking about what's actually really going on in our society and what's happening all around us and what are they actually really bringing us towards. I mean, I love technology just like the next person, but do you love technology at the detriment of our very own souls, our very own selves? So, when we now know that automated robots are now going to be relied heavily on to be making a lot of these experimental organs, it's interesting, I mean, it's very interesting on how we should actually really think about this. I mean, if one can thoroughly trust his government or her government or the system upon which you're in, there probably wouldn't be too much worries. But when one cannot trust the government or the system from which they're in, and as they're pushing all these GMOs on us, it becomes very concerning. So even with this being said, it's very hard for us to get out of the mode of, trusting what's really happening, even though it sounds really good. So, a lot of them say it's too soon to say whether robotic automation will lead to better drugs becoming available sooner. But the results so far look pretty cool, as they say. The fact that scientists are already publishing surprising findings that they may have otherwise missed suggests we may start seeing a lot more out of um, biomedical researchers in this area. So, also, now that it's easy to make human like organoids, pharmaceutical experimentation will become more relevant to you and, humanity. That's what they're saying, that this is going to be a benefit to humanity. There are a lot of drugs and treatments that look on the phenomenon based on animal studies, but do not have the same effect on people. While these mass-produced organs aren't as complex as the real thing, they're a good step. They're a very good step, as they're saying, forward to may help us understand what's really going on underneath our skin. So, it's interesting that they say that what's really going on underneath our skin. It's something that we need to take hold and take heed and really think about as we move forward. I implore you go to www.i-mindigenous.org. Take a look at some of the things that are going on over there. See exactly all the ways that you can help on supporting the community building efforts that we have going on around the country right now, and truly identifying ourselves as being the people. It's very important for us to have an understanding as to why we are who we are and what we are actually doing on this earth. So, as I bring this down to a close, it's hard for me to understand what's going on here, but is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this something that we need to really take a look at? I thank you for listening to Dark Matter Radio tonight. This was mainly a news update and a flash on the robots that can now grow organs. There's been an awakening. Have you felt it? You are listening to Dark Matter Radio with your host, Ronnie. www.im-indigenous.org.